In 1914, a single gunshot in Sarajevo lit the fuse for a war no one saw coming. That moment, the assassination of Archduke Franz Ferdinand dragged Europe into flames and changed the fate of humanity forever. Politicians at the time promised it would be quick, a short conflict that might be over by Christmas. But those promises turned into a nightmare. Instead of a brief clash, the world found itself trapped in 4 long years of blood, mud, and unimaginable suffering. The First World War was unlike anything humanity had ever faced. The world before 1914 was already on edge. Europe was a powder keg, waiting for a spark. 2 massive alliance systems divided the continent. The Triple Entente, made up of France, Russia, and Britain, and the Triple Alliance, which included Germany, Austria, Hungary, and Italy. Nationalism was boiling, with countries fiercely proud of their identities. At the same time, nations were locked in an arms race, building ever larger armies, more powerful navies, and racing to seize colonies overseas. Suspicion, fear, and competition made the atmosphere tense. All it took was one event to make everything explode, and Sarajevo provided it. When Austria blamed Serbia for the killing of Franz Ferdinand, Russia backed Serbia. Germany backed Austria. France and Britain stood with Russia. It was like a line of dominoes collapsing in slow motion. Within weeks, nearly every major power in Europe was dragged into the fight. Germany launched its invasion of Belgium in order to strike France, and Britain, sworn to protect Belgian neutrality, entered the war. What began as a regional crisis turned into a global conflict. The Western Front became the defining image of the war. Soldiers dug trenches stretching from the North Sea all the way to Switzerland, creating a scar across Europe that lasted for years. Life in those trenches was pure misery. Knee-deep mud, the stench of rotting bodies, rats the size of cats, disease spreading everywhere, and the constant sound of artillery overhead. New weapons, like machine guns and poison gas, made traditional strategies suicidal. At Verdun in 1916, hundreds of thousands of men were slaughtered over a few miles of ground. At the Somme that same year, more than 1 million men were killed or wounded, with the British suffering nearly 60,000 casualties in a single day. Meanwhile, on the Eastern Front, the war was far more mobile, stretching across vast lands between Germany, Austria, Hungary, and Russia. Millions of soldiers clashed in brutal battles, but the sheer size of the front made it chaotic. By 1917, Russia was collapsing under the strain, and revolution erupted at home. The Tsar fell, and the Bolsheviks signed a peace treaty with Germany. ending Russia's role in the war, but igniting a whole new chapter of history. The war spread far beyond Europe as well. In the Middle East, the Ottoman Empire joined the Central Powers, clashing with Britain and the Arab revolts. Figures like T.E. Lawrence of Arabia, became legendary for their daring raids. At sea, German submarines prowled the Atlantic, sinking civilian and merchant ships, threatening even neutral nations. The British Navy tried to strangle Germany with a blockade, leading to hunger and unrest at home. This was not just a European war, it was the first truly global war. For the soldiers, the daily reality was hell. Imagine being 19 years old, sent to the front with the hope of glory, only to find yourself trapped in a trench, breathing in poison gas, watching your friends fall beside you. The smell of death was constant. When the whistle blew, you climbed over the top and charged into machine gun fire, often knowing you would not survive. Back home, families lived in fear, waiting for letters that often never came. Women took up roles in factories, producing the weapons of war. Governments used propaganda to keep spirits high, but the truth was impossible to hide. A whole generation of poets and writers, men like Wilfred Owen and Siegfried Sassoon, wrote about the hopelessness and futility of it all. By 1917, the war had reached a breaking point. Stalemate consumed the Western Front. But two huge events changed the game. First, Russia withdrew after the Bolshevik Revolution, giving Germany breathing room in the East. But then, the United States entered the war, angered by repeated submarine attacks and the infamous Zimmermann telegram, in which Germany encouraged Mexico to attack America. Fresh American troops, money, and resources gave the Allies the edge they desperately needed. In 1918, Germany launched a massive final offensive, hoping to win before the US could fully mobilize. But it failed. The Allies pushed back with overwhelming strength. Germany's allies began to collapse one by one, and its own people, starving and exhausted, turned against the war. Finally, on the 11th of November 1918, at the 11th hour of the 11th day of the 11th month, the guns fell silent. The war was over. The cost was unimaginable. Nearly 17 million people were dead. More than 20 million were wounded. Entire cities, villages, and landscapes had been reduced to rubble. Four great empires collapsed: Austria-Hungary, the Ottoman Empire, Imperial Russia, and eventually even the German monarchy. The world that emerged after 1918 was completely different from the one that had gone before. But peace did not bring comfort. At the Treaty of Versailles in 1919, Germany was forced to accept full responsibility for the war. Heavy reparations, harsh restrictions, and deep humiliation were imposed. Many Germans saw the treaty not as peace, but as betrayal. And in those bitter feelings, the seeds of the next great war were planted. World War I was called the War to End All Wars. But in truth, it was only the beginning of the 20th century's darkest chapter. Just 20 years later, humanity would plunge into an even bloodier conflict: World War II. Still, the memory of the trenches, the wasted youth, the voices of those who never came home, remains one of the most haunting lessons in history. The Great War changed the world forever, and its echoes still shape us today.